Hey everyone, wanted to demonstrate today how to make your own custom audio video input output panel. So I use these throughout my trailer. I use them in a lot of the equipment racks that I build, and it's really nice to be able to have exactly the right connectors you need available on the front of a rack. And I'm going to show you actually how to do it today. It's pretty simple, so you only need a few key components, and I'm going to walk you through some of that today. So before I do that, let me show you some B-roll footage here of a few of the places where I actually have some of these panels. So I have numerous of these throughout the trailer. Each one of the desks in the trailer has at least one where I've got connections for intercom and Ethernet, and very often have some BNCs for video and even some USB here and there. But this is a great being able to have access to the connectors that I need pretty much anywhere that I need them. So in addition to actually having them in some of the racks that throughout the trailer, I also use this style of connector in some wall plates as well. So as you're seeing those on your screen now, I've got some places where I hook in lighting or video connections using this style of panel and connector as well. So this is all made possible through kind of a de facto standard of connectors in the industry. It's known as Neutrik D style. Now, Neutrik may have started it, but they're not the only company that's actually making connectors that use this standard. So I'll actually take you through some of the available options, and then I'll walk you through the steps of making your own. So take a look at some of the options that I've got here. Alright, so I keep a ton of these things around because they're just so incredibly useful. So move this out of the way and take a look at some of the options. So of course we got kind of our standard XLR. So there's an XLR input and there's an XLR output. And these come in a lot of different variants as well. So you can get different metals in there. So these are nickel, but you can also get them with gold. You've got some that use solder cups like these, and then there's others that use springs that are then meant to solder. And they also have feed-through connector. And what I mean by feed-through, if you take a look at this other style here, this is a BNC. That's a BNC on both the front and back. And that's feed-through. So basically, you just have a standard connector on the back instead of having to do any soldering. So that's a feed-through there. There's a USB 2. Also in here, we got USB 3.0. And come over here, there's HDMI. This one's made by Neutrik. But I also have, like, this one's made by a company called Connectronics. These are the ones I actually used in my trailer the most because they were cheap when I got them. Let's see if I have another. Yeah, there we go. So this one's made by Switchcraft. So there you go, 3 different manufacturers, just an HDMI right there. And it's kind of nice to have variety, different looks. And take a look at some of the other ones here. So this one, 1/4 inch TRS. So plugging headphones or line level balanced audio. Also, we also have these. This is a Neutrik universal combo jack. So this one will accept either XLR male or TRS. You can do either one. And they have separate connections on the back, and they have multiple different versions of these. So you can see this one has more connections on it. This is a switching one, so you can actually have a signal pass through by default until it's interrupted by plugging in a plug on the front. So numerous different variations on those. And these are some of my favorites. These things work great. It's nice having a lot of variety there. This one is what we call a PowerCon, and here's the connector that goes along with that. So that allows you to do AC power, so you can have a power inlet on your device. They also make a corresponding outlet as well. Those ones are colored gray. And they have a newer version, forget the name off the top of my head, that's higher current and meant to be water resistant. These ones are not guaranteed to be water resistant or anything like that, but most of the time that's not a problem for us. So there's those. What else do I have in here? Oh yeah, I've got some fiber, so that's LC single mode fiber connections there, and then higher end similar. I'll pull this out of the bag and get a better look at it here. So this is what's called a FiberCon. So it's a single mode fiber connection, similar to this, but it also has a place to carry power as well. So higher end, much more expensive than these guys. These are pretty inexpensive. These get pricey, and they make these in not just 2 duplex connectors, but you can get those in 4, 12, and 24 connections as well. Those get really, really pricey. I would eventually like to move to those on my input panel on my trailer. Another one that I use a lot is EtherCon, so that's actually an RJ45 for doing Ethernet. And they have a lot of different variations and versions of these too. This is a punch down on the back, so you use a punch down tool to punch it like you would on a patch panel. But they also have feed through versions as well, so you'd have an Ethernet connection on the back that you can plug in there. So what else do I have? That might be about it for this collection here. I do have other types beyond that too. This is what they call a speak-on. This actually allows you to plug in speakers, passive speakers. One thing, these don't get used this way very often, but these actually handle 2 simultaneous speaker connections at once, so 2 independent channels, so you can do stereo on a single jack. You don't normally see them done that way, but they're certainly capable of it. So yeah, plug in your speakers with that. Speak-ons are actually pretty well known for people who use passive speakers. And then they have blank panels you can put on there as well. And then these rubber dust covers you can place on your connectors too. So what I'm going to do is actually demonstrate how you actually use these. They're really easy to do. So let me go ahead. I'm going to put down a wood block because I'm going to be doing a little bit of hammering and I don't want to mark the surface of my desk. But this is kind of the basis of a lot of this. So this is it's called a UNI-1, UNI-1 from Middle Atlantic. It's laser cut. You can see that there. Yeah. So the holes are already laser cut for the most part, and all you really have to do is knock out a couple of little tabs there in order to complete the hole. So we'll actually do that here in a minute. So what we'll do is we'll actually put an XLR in here. We'll play it by ear. But the tools to do this are pretty simple. I use a nail set. Works pretty well for that. And then a hammer. I'm going to be a little bit hampered by the fact that this board is so short, so I'm going to have to hold this down while I'm doing it. But you look, you can see this. There are actually 2 separate holes here. The outer bigger hole is the Neutrik D size, and then the inner one is the Neutrik A size. You don't see the A size very much. They do exist, but yeah. So you got your big hole that we're going to be notching out, and then the 2 holes for mounting screws that we're going to be doing. Like I say, I use a nail set. This makes it really easy. So quick punch, quick hammer on these, and those pop right out. And then very often it's being held in place by a little piece of metal right there, there, and there. There's 4 of them around. I find it easy. Well, when you have something hard behind it, I find it fairly easy to notch it out, or to knock it out by getting close to where those are. There you go. So that's one side, and we'll do the opposite side. And then, yeah, the other ones are kind of mostly done. So there it is. So just that quick, I've been able to knock a hole in there that we can then put our choice of connector into. So like I say, we'll do an XLR in this one. So beyond the connector itself, you also need some screws. I like to use, these are 632s, so in most of the rest of the world you'd want to get like M3 or M3.5. Those would be your best bet. I also go with Torx style, and you probably can't see that in the video there, but it's a Torx style instead of Phillips. And for anybody who's still purchasing Phillips screws, do yourself a favor and try Torx or even Square Robertson. They just are so much easier to work with. You don't have to press down into the screw while you're working. So just much simpler to use. So I've almost exclusively moved over to using Torx for pretty much everything at this point. So alright, so and we actually have 2 different ways we can mount this. You can either front mount it, you can do like this, or you can back mount it, and that looks like this. I prefer the back mount most of the time. I think it looks nicer, a little more professional than going with the front mount. And in addition, the other advantage you get by going back mount is you can leave the wires connected when you remove one, whereas if you go front mount, if you ever need to remove that, you're going to have to disconnect your wire. So if you're doing a solder connection like this, that can become a real pain. So again, I prefer back mount. But from there, it's really just a matter of adding the hardware. So I'm going to add the screw, and then pop a nut onto the back, and then grab my driver. A little awkward to do at this angle. That will make it work. There we go. Now it finally grabbed. And then I'll do the other. Yeah, there we go. That bit. And I'm not using one right now, but it helps to have a pair of pliers or something like that on the backside to hold the nut in place. But I'm able to get it pretty tight most of the time without it. So that's what that looks like. Nice and easy, very quick, very easy, and having a huge variety of connectors out there allows you to customize the panels any way that you like. Now, if you notice in the video I showed you a minute ago that I have labels going across the top of these connectors. And that's just, all I did with that is just created the Microsoft Word template. I put together a table in there, and I set the size of each cell in the table to be the width of each one of these connectors, and then a 1/4 inch high. And I printed that on full page labels on a color inkjet, or sorry, on a color laser printer, and makes for a really nice looking label and really easy to do. So yeah, not really that much to it. I've been using these things for, my gosh, close to 20 years, and they work great. And one of the other nice things is, because this is not permanent, you can reuse both the connectors and the panels themselves over and over and over again. I've done that many times as well. So a number of the Uni 1 panels that I have here on the trailer I've had for more than a decade, and just repurpose them as needed. So yeah, save a lot of materials that way. Now, in terms of where to get some of these things, I get most of mine through Markertech. So we'll take a look here. In this case, I did a search for Neutrik D, and that brings up quite a few. So you can see some of the ones that I mentioned. Like, there's your XLR. That's a feed through XLR. They also have solder style, HDMI. This one sticks out, so if you wanted to have one that you can plug something that requires a little bit of extra clearance, you can do that. There's your BNCs. They have multiple different styles of BNCs. Again, HDMI. And some other things in here that aren't actually. But so there, yeah, there's wall plates as well. So if you want to do your wall plates, that's one good way to do it. Neutrik also sells, you're going to have a hard time seeing it in the little video, but these wall plates from a company called Mystery. So I've used those a number of times. But I've also used the style like you're seeing there on your screen. And they have some pre-punched panels as well. That's a little bit cheaper than the Middle Atlantic, but I like the Middle Atlantic because you get 16 connectors in one rack space. Gives you a lot of very high density. So, and there's another custom wall plate that you put your own connectors into. And there's USB, some blanks. So yeah, and there's a 5-pin XLR. A lot of different variations. A lot of different, yeah. Like there's a DB9. So if you need to do like a serial port or whatever, you can certainly do that too. A lot of variety. And another thing you can do if you're doing wall plates, if you do a search on Amazon for XLR wall plate, you'll get all of these, and these are the same size connectors too. So it's already pre-done, but if you wanted to, and I've done this a number of times, you buy one of these things, pull the XLR connectors that come in in the panel out and use those for something else, and then put whatever connectors you want into the panel. It's a little bit cheaper that way than it is to buy the blanks and then populate it with the connectors separately. So now you also see these things used in a lot of products out there as well. So if I take a look, I've got this adapter from AV Lifesavers. This is an adapter for my intercom. So you plug in ClearComm intercom over here, and then you extract your audio and inject your own audio in here. But these are just those Neutrik D style connectors in there. So looks pretty professional. And these obviously are top mounted. And I should mention, if you're going to top mount, you're going to want to use countersink screws so that they're laying flush with the top of the connector, at least as close as you can be, instead of the pan head screws like I use when you're doing bottom mount. So you actually use different style screws when you go that way. So anyway, now if you want to make something even more custom than that, you can punch your own holes, and the diameter of the hole that's used by these is 15/16 of an inch, which is 23.8 millimeters. I invested in this punch from Greenlee, and I'll have a link for that up on screen. This is exactly 15/16 of an inch, and these are pretty easy to use. So basically what you do, you drill a pilot hole for this stud, and then you push the stud through, and then on the back side you put this on there, screw it down as tight as you can, and then grab your adjustable wrench or whatever, and then just tighten down, and that gives you a perfectly clean hole. It's exactly the right size. Of course, you then need to drill a couple of holes for the screws for the connector, but that's easy enough to do. So yeah, this tool has paid for itself many times over. I've done literally hundreds of holes with this thing, and it's still just as sharp as it was on day one. Very high quality product. If you ever need to go into wood, I don't do that a lot, but every once in a while I have a handful of these connectors directly in the wall where I only need one, and I don't want to deal with the wall plate. So in that case, I like to use a Forstner bit. So this is a Forstner bit. It's exactly 15/16 inch. These are a little bit hard to find. I don't remember where I found this one. I've had this for a long time too. But yeah, that allows me to cut the exact right size hole in wood. And in a pinch, I have used it in metal, although using the punch is a far better way to go. But it's a great way to build your own custom panels to have exactly the right connectors that you need, and most of the different types of connections that you need are available at this point, not just from Neutrik, but other manufacturers too. Again, I mentioned Connectronics and Switchcraft, just two other examples. There are others as well. This has become kind of a de facto standard, so it's not hard to find a wide variety of connectors that work in these new Neutrik D-style holes. So, and then once you've got your connectors mounted in your panel, just screw it down into your rack, and you're good to go. So nice and easy. It probably does help to have some soldering skills, so you can use the solder style connectors. They're a little cheaper and a little more reliable. You don't have to worry about something pulling out of the back of one of those. The HDMI I have found to be particularly problematic about that. Vibration, moving things around, whatever. Some of those connections can come loose if you're using the feed through and it's not a locking style connector like a BNC or an XLR. So anyway, that's going to do it for right now. So if you guys have any questions about this, you can leave those in the comment section down below, or join us over on Discord, djp.li/discord. And I'd love to see some photos of panels that you guys have put together. So if you happen to be using some of these, share those photos over there on Discord. I'd love to see them. And yeah, so let me know how you might use this. This is kind of a very handy way of making a very nice, neat installation and giving you exactly the connections that you need for a particular equipment rack or whatever. So, anyway, thanks for watching, and have a great day.